Jeannie McKenzie. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio, and thank you, Eileen Harpfinger, for recommending you as a guest. She will be on a future program. Wasn't able to come on a recent one, but I wanted to get her on, so she recommended you to make up for it. Kudos to her for that. Looking at your website here, JeannieMcKenzie.com. You seem like a very interesting.
It's Jeannie. Wait, can we just stop because my name is Jeannie, not Jenny?
Jeannie. Thank you for the pronunciation correction. Like genie in a bottle, but it's not spelled like genie in a bottle. It's Jeannie McKenzie,
Yeah.
and that .com is your website. JeannieMcKenzie.com is your website, and maybe I'll give you the chance to plug it at the end too. And any contact info, we'll save that for the end. But first, I want to hear your life story from a primary source perspective, what you experience in your life that causes you to do the stuff that you do, the healing modalities and everything else that goes with it. And I'll use your website as a guide, as I explained, but right now you got the floor to explain everything and also silence the skeptics to show that the stuff that you do is definitely worth doing and is not fraudulent science, quack science, or anything like that. You've got the floor.
Okay, so what I do is very earth-based. And the healing modalities I guess I should start with that I began as sort of very much in love with the natural world when I was a young child and spent a lot of time playing in the woods. And that sort of informed my passion for nature and whole foods, organic foods, treating the earth as a living being. I think when I was about 5 years old, I used to collect tadpoles, and my mother would let me grow them into frogs in the kitchen. And at one point, I was taking all my frogs back to their pond, and the pond was being bulldozed by these giant machines, which threw me into nightmares for a few years of these giant machines trying to eat me. And it inspired in me this desire to do whatever I could for this planet, for the beings of this planet, for the creatures of this planet. So fast forward to today, I have an urban farm in the Oakland Hills in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And I raise goats, turkeys, chickens, bees, have a big garden, and I live in a collective house where everyone is equally involved in decision making, and all of the creativity of all of the people who live here are contributing to this very harmonious dwelling situation. Some people call it an informal spiritual community because we spontaneously practice qigong or meditation or yoga pretty much every morning, just whoever is available and around. And I am involved in several healing modalities that have evolved over this time. So I started out by working in a collective food store and championing organic foods and working with farmers and promoting their style of growing food as opposed to the commercial agribusiness styles. And, I feel like there's tons of science out there about why it's important to treat the earth in this way, that she's a living being. And there are all these different kinds of microorganisms in the soil that are vital for our own microbiomes. If you think about somebody was just telling me that if you were to take away all of the cells in your body that don't contain your DNA, or that do contain your DNA, which is like 20% of the cells of who we are contain our DNA. The rest are this whole microbiome. And that microbiome would still look like us if you took away all of the cells that contain our DNA. I just heard that the other day and I was just flabbergasted. And I feel like it's important that we understand that we are communities, and that communities are what all of life is about. So when I think about how I live now, it's very much in an alliance with these different communities of microbiomes that are all around me. So I look at, my goat yard and the whole milk, the raw milk that I drink, and how it's full of living bacteria, living microorganisms that actually fight pathogenic organisms that are promoting my health when I drink them. It's a healthy relationship with an animal. It's a very small scale way of being. And as a urban farmer, what we're really, as urban farmers, what we're really promoting is this smaller scale kind of microcosm of what life is. So there's the physical body, that's this community. There's the earth and the soil that we're growing our food in, that's its own kind of community. There's the collection of people who milk my goats, who are this other kind of supportive community. There's the community that I live with. And then there's the community of people who come to classes and workshops that I teach in basically understanding our bigger energy structure and the way we are interconnected as spiritual beings. So since 2013, I've been studying with a woman named Esther Zuckerman, who has come up with an anatomy book. It's called Your Sacred Anatomy, and it's an anatomy book of our bigger energy structure, the 50 feet around us. And within that structure, there are 7 systems that she's mapped. She would, be another person you could interview about this sort of thing. But I've also been a Qigong practitioner for the last 30 years and was a yoga teacher for 7 years. I started doing yoga out of books when I was 12. So the spiritual part of my past that has sort of led into this bigger community field started when I was very young. So I feel like it started with my connection to the earth and then my connection to my body and, studying yoga. And then I studied mime with Marcel Marceau and performed as a mime all over the world, and then moved from there into studying body work. And one of the pieces of that is that I'm a musician and a sound healer. So that started also when I was in my early 20s. I had a serious incident where someone stepped on my violin, 200-year-old violin, and broke it. And the sound that came out of me was I was so connected to that instrument. It was my voice, because as a musician, your instrument can feel like it's your voice. So the violin broke and my voice just blasted forth in this sound that had all these overtones, which I'd never heard before in myself. And that led me to a workshop with a woman named Jill Peirce, who was teaching Tibetan overtone chanting. A week later, walking through the Haight-Ashbury, I see this sign on the telephone pole, when they used to put sign on telephone poles, flyers on telephone poles, and it said, sound healing workshop with Jill Peirce, who's just come back from 5 years of studying as a Tibetan monk. And I thought, that's what I was doing. I was singing overtones. Let me find out more about this. And I started using sound, incorporating that. I was studying Barefoot Shiatsu at the Acupressure Institute in Berkeley, and I found that the sounds I would use, if I directed them into people's bodies, would just melt this tension that would be there. It would be like a knot, and putting the right sound into that knot would just melt the knot. So it was a modality that I just kept working with. But I'm also a performer, and I like to approach everything from lots of different angles. So I got interested in teaching children and started teaching music to children and, helping them open to their creative expression as musicians. And the healing of a group of kids singing together, or a group of people singing together, is really profound. There's a lot of I'm not a scientist, but I read lots of things, and anybody can read things about how bringing our voices together in song is a powerful way of soothing our vagus nerve, of soothing our spirits, because it's like a unified way of being in community in a creative space. So that practice of being in community in a creative way is something that has always been important to me. I play jazz violin. I'm an improviser. I play in a group called Maze Daiko, taiko, marimba, and violin. And I am just listening to what everyone's playing in the moment and improvising. And I feel like there's something about that practice of listening and being in the moment and being present to what is unfolding that is the place of the greatest potential and creativity. So meditation, of course, is, I started doing yoga when I was 12 out of books. I started Vipassana meditation when I was 32, I think. I went and sat my first 10-day Goenka Vipassana course. And for 2 years, I really dedicated myself. I meditated 2 hours every day. I did probably 4 courses, either sitting them or serving them over the course of that time. And at the end of that 2 years, I felt like what I wanted to be doing was living my meditation. So as I've been developing myself since that time, studying biodynamic cranial sacral work, studying Chinit Song, working with the hara, the belly, and then this other kind of energy medicine practice that's being present to what's going on in this bigger field and how this bigger field is affecting our physical bodies and how our physical bodies are affecting our bigger field, how our physical, psychological, and emotional selves are dancing together in these beautiful and instructive ways that are basically helping us through this school of earth life that we're all doing here. And there's something about being in community that I find to be a great reflection for myself of, if I'm centered, if I'm staying centered, if I'm staying in a state that is open and resourced, then if someone doesn't do their dishes, it's not a big deal. Or, the challenges that life presents, like the goats have been escaping and getting into the neighbor's garden and, all the things like that. It's like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. So then we better do this. Or, somebody's going crazy on the freeway around you. And it's just like, okay, that person's obviously having a challenging time. Let's send them love. So I guess that it's been a process of evolution and growth and learning that has come from spiritual practices, body work and healing work practices, teaching children, teaching Qigong and yoga. And currently I'm leading sound journeys every week and teaching sound healing using tuning forks and singing bowls and my voice especially. So I feel like all these things have just been in this weave as I grow stronger in my understanding that we're all vibration. We are in communities of vibrating frequency that are vibrating at certain frequencies. I don't know if I notice that as I move around through my life, I find more and more I'm meeting people, connecting with people. It's just been this kind of evolution that so many people in my life now are also on this path of healing, of cultivating earth practices, of using sound, of meditation, of connecting with the plant world, the herbs, the animals, of course, as well. So I think that our community within is a reflection of this bigger community without, and that when we cultivate both communities, our wholeness becomes greater, and our part of the greater whole becomes something that we're more awake to. So, do you have any questions, Andrew?
Oh yes, quite a few. Before I get you start using your website as a general guide, the thing you mentioned, just want to get this out of the way so I don't have it hanging over my head because a lot of controversy about this. I heard you mention that you drink raw milk, and I'm sure an advocate of that. And well, you're not the only one that advocates that. And well, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
trouble has been caused by farmers. I saw the documentary Farmageddon talking about how, among other things,
Yeah.
people who sell raw milk for whatever the reason may be are getting hassled by the law, who makes public
Yeah.
policy, which technically isn't law, saying you can't sell raw milk, even though it allegedly is much healthier than non-raw milk. And well,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, if you have any idea why that is, and second of all, I also have to ask, um, drinking milk in general, be it raw or not raw, is it really in our best interest to do that? Because I've seen some videos on YouTube. Now the now defunct Event is Coming Soon YouTube channel, also the Spirit Science YouTube channel, did upload some videos uh, exposing research that suggests that the human body really is not designed to drink cow, goat, or camel milk, and the three basic animals that we get milk from nowadays as humans, and always have been, more often than not it's cows, but it also goes to camels, and it's not in our best interest to drink that. We're not really designed to drink the female fluid, nourishing fluid of other animals, they say, and it really the method by which the body has to go through to extract the calcium and all the nutrients from the milk, it causes the body so much trouble and so much effort and energy to get that into the system that it's basically a waste of energy. And I don't really know, I can't remember exact science behind it, but it's like they say you want to get calcium, your best bet is to eat leafy green vegetables, not milk, because you
Mm-hmm.
drink milk, the calcium's kind of going to go to waste because the body, well, it's not supposed to take it. It's a complicated method by which it has to extract it compared to leafy green vegetables. Have you heard anything about this, and do you have any statement about it? And also, do you know why the raw milk community is getting so prosecuted?
Okay, those are great questions. Um, First of all, well, so let's just start with milk as a food and raw milk. Um, so when I'm drinking the milk of my goats, I'm drinking a milk that's coming from a relationship, and it's a very loving relationship. And some people's bodies can't don't tolerate meat well. Some people's bodies don't tolerate milk well. Some people's bodies need milk. I feel like I don't believe in any blanket, this is the kind of diet we as humans need, because I really see us as all being individual and unique. All of us vibrating at our own frequencies, all of us with our own colony of microorganisms that is needing this or needing that. I mean, I'd cut sugar way before I would cut dairy from my diet. And in fact, I don't eat sugar, but but there is sweetness in the milk, and I appreciate that sweetness, and I appreciate the relationship that comes from it. For me, mostly I make cheese and eat cheese. I don't sell my raw milk, just to be clear, because it's very controversial. So where did that controversy come from? Well, there was a rapid urbanization that happened in the early 19th century, and there were dairies. That was the beginning of urban dairies that were called Slopdairies, where cows were fed what was left over from grain production, or grain alcohol production. So, and the dairies at that time were characterized by filth, horrendous conditions, and the cows had no access to their preferred food, which was grass. They never saw the light of day. They were eating and sleeping in their own waste. So the average productivity span for these animals was like under 2 years. And they added chalk to the milk or alum to make this nutrient poor milk white. Bacterial counts were high. There was not really refrigeration available to the average family, so people would get sick and die from this impure milk. So then pasteurization was discovered and heavily promoted, and sickness and infant mortality went down because they started pasteurizing this really horrible, sloppy milk, and it allowed the dairies to continue in this way that was very inhumane for the animals, and not really necessary. Pure milk at that time from cows that were fed on grass in the country was so coveted that it cost 3 times more in the early 1900s. So up until World War II, raw milk was upheld as a superior product. And people who had access to it, that's what they would buy. They didn't accept that pasteurized milk was healthier or tastier. And there was, people living in the cities who were limited in their financial resources. They would buy this pasteurized slop milk because it was cheap, it was accessible. And industries started to launch food fear campaigns. And they lobbied hard for legislation to require pasteurization because they wanted to be leveling this playing field where, 3 times as much money was being spent by people who could afford it on this better quality milk, which was the raw milk. But so then later there was a similar kind of phenomenon that ensued around homogenization. And the bottom line was that for both pasteurization and homogenization, that milk had a longer shelf life for shipping and selling in a grocery store. Now, if you look at the difference between raw milk when it goes bad and pasteurized, homogenized milk when it goes bad, raw milk is actually almost like something you could still drink. Pasteurized milk is just this it's horrible because there's the life. What happens in raw milk is there's life in the milk that continues. It continues to grow. It goes into a state of being sour or making cheese. Interestingly, humans have had this relationship with goats for at least 10,000 years, like 10,000 years that we know of. If it's so unhealthy for humans to be drinking goat milk, why have we been doing it for 10,000 years? What? I don't know. It may be, maybe it's not healthy for some people, sure. But I think there's a lot of people who genetically have grown up with, who come from lineages where that alliance with goats and people or cows and people was strong. And they had that. It's like in our DNA for many people, not for everyone. I think, in Asian culture, that hasn't been as common. I don't know for sure. But anyway, so I just want to say that modern dairies are obviously nothing like the Slopdairies. There's very high levels of sterile automated systems where humans hardly touch the animals, which in itself is, in my mind, kind of a travesty because you're drinking this milk that isn't carried through the same kind of love and attention that a farmer who cares for and tends their animals is bringing forward. It's like if you think about a cow right now, she may be confined in a 4 feet by 5 foot 4 stall. That's her life. It may be clean, it may be sterile, it may be clear, but she's basically hooked up to a milking machine for her whole life and given grain all day, no exercise. And then these cows are getting really fat, standing on concrete all day, which leads to laminitis, which is a condition of the hooves that causes extreme suffering. So that and mastitis, which is also an illness that creates low milk production, is another thing that's very common in these dairies. So then they use antibiotics. So if you think about it, antibiotics are going to pass into the milk. And at this point, some 40% of the milk we buy in the store is inoculated with antibiotics. So either we're feeding our healthy system, our antibodies, our colony of our microbiome, or we're killing it off. And if you look at how many people are suffering from allergies now, food allergies, environmental allergies, it's like we're not including in our microbiome what's around us anymore. We're pushing it away. And then when it comes to us, it's foreign and alien, and we react to it. So I feel like there's a disintegration, this compartmentalization that is leading to so much suffering, really. Okay, so that's what I have to say about raw milk.
Thank you. I've never actually had goat milk in my life, or camel milk for that matter. For those that are
Mhm.
curious, can you compare and contrast goat milk with cow milk, not just the taste, but some of the other things? And if you know anything about camel milk, by all means tell. Maybe only Middle Easterns know about that, but if you do,
I don't know anything about camel milk, but I do know that goat milk is the closest in molecular composition and vitamin composition and mineral composition to human milk of any animal's milk. So it's like for eons, people have fed, or decade, whatever, hundreds of years, thousands of years, people have supplemented milk for their babies with goat milk. Um, in fact, I fed my daughter goat milk when she was a baby, and I was finished nursing her, or she was staying, with babysitters, and I didn't have my milk for her. I would give her goat milk. She's a very healthy person today, so I think it didn't do any harm. That's my anecdotal evidence. Uh, Anything else you'd like me to
what does it
address?
taste like?
What does it taste like? It depends. It really depends on the goat. Some goat milk tastes very kind of gamey and goaty. Other goats have milk that you can barely tell the difference between that and cow milk. It just depends on the goats, really.
Okay, fair enough. Uh, Thank you for the milk lesson. Uh, Now looking at
Sure.
your bio here, some of the things you've done most recently, it says here, been studying esoteric acupuncture using tuning forks as a way of tuning and aligning the chakras. Interesting you mentioned that.
Hmm.
I just that's there because a couple days ago I bought a tuning fork, the 4096 variety for clearing my property myself and my crystals. It's much easier to
Hmm.
bang a tuning fork with a little mallet and wave it around your crystals rather than hauling them all out to the full moon every time there's a full moon. And not only that, you may not even get the full moon if the clouds are out, and it's been like that and
Hmm.
like a few times
Hmm.
past time. So I figured
Yeah.
just make it easy, spend a little money on a tuning fork, and I just do a crystal a day, eventually go around, circle around my house till I get them all. And well, that hopefully will, I'm sure it'll work. I have no reason to think it won't. This guy Anthony Rizzo, who I've watched some presentations of this past weekend, and also at a place in Newtown, Pennsylvania, has enlightened me greatly on tuning forks and the different frequencies and how they work. But this is not about him or me. This is about you. This show is, so you can tell. What do you know about which kind of tuning forks are, what frequencies are really good for certain things, and how do you go about using them, tuning and aligning the chakras and healing and clearing and whatever you do with them?
Well, so frequencies are an interesting question. For me, I mean, I use dowsing as a way of determining what tuning forks I'm using for different people and different kinds of situations. So basically, I feel like intention is a huge part of whatever you do with sound. That being said, I've been working. There's a gentleman named Randy Masters who's been developing specific frequencies of tuning forks based on his studies of the sacred geometry in ancient Egyptian pyramids, and I mean, that sort of left brain processing is something that I actually have a roommate who's so deep into that, and I listen to him, and he has probably 300 different frequencies of tuning forks. And what I find for myself is I use two. And it happens that these two frequencies of tuning forks are aligned with the heart chakra in Randy's system. And if you can look at so many different healing systems, and you will find that they don't all say the same things about what is the frequency for the heart chakra, what are the frequencies for the chakras. There's not agreement in that. I think it's unique to the individual and how they're vibrating. So my practice is using these two tuning forks, which are their frequencies are 121.3629, which is a C flat minus, and 120 or 135 hertz, which is a C sharp plus. So they're not exactly C sharp or C flat. It's a very close interval, and that by working with that interval and working with Shen points or spirit points in a pattern of sacred geometry, I can douse the chakras at the beginning of a session, and I douse the spin of the chakras. That's what I'm working with in this instance when I'm working with the tuning forks. So I'll douse the spin of the chakras and find, which ones are fully expressing, which ones are not. I'll do these particular patterns, and at the end of the pattern, I'll find that all of them are expressing the spin will be unified even between and through all of the chakras. So the energy healing work I've done with this Zuckerman is much more specific with chakras. But I have found that by working with the tuning forks, these two tuning forks, I can have similar results to this more in-depth kind of, realigning, reconnecting chakras. There's extensive work that she does with the chakras. But I found that by harmonizing the body through these spirit points or Shen points in a sacred geometry pattern, it brings the alignment and the focus and expression into a state of congruence that seems to be really beneficial for people. That's the experience that I've had. Is that helpful?
Yes, and esoteric acupuncture, using tuning forks, it says that's a phrase I'm seeing in your bio here.
Mm-hmm.
But when people think of acupuncture, they think of needles being put at different energy areas around the body.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's interesting
And
how the E in esoteric and the A in acupuncture are actually capitalized in the phrase. What's the significance behind that, if there is one?
So esoteric acupuncture is the work of Mikio Sanki, and he's an acupuncturist. And someone recommended that I study with him, and they said, when I asked him, I said, I'm not a sort of licensed acupuncturist. I don't needle people. Could I still study this work and use it effectively? And he said, yes, you can use your tuning forks. Tuning forks are very powerful and effective at stimulating these acupuncture points. So I've taken 3 different workshops with him, and I feel an alliance with his work. So I use it. Sometimes it's like I go through phases where I'll do this pattern on myself every day, or one of his patterns on myself every day. There are many patterns that he has sort of researched and uses, and the one that I find the simplest is actually the most effective for many people that I've worked with. So, and it's a series of triangles, basically. It's triangulations of points. But if you check out Mikio Sanki, he's the founder, creator of Esoteric Acupuncture.
Thank you very much. And where to go from here? I think it's the healing modalities page is where I want to go next. First of all, I'll start here because I heard you mention it and hard to pronounce here. Barefoot Shiatsu, Shiatsu.
Shiatsu.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
barefoot shiatsu.
What is that?
So shiatsu is a modality that works with acupressure points, or so acupuncture points, but using acupressure. Barefoot shiatsu or ashiatsu is ashi means foot, so it's kind of the new name for barefoot shiatsu, which was a form that was developed and popularized by a Japanese woman, Shizuko Yamamoto. And she was one of my teachers, and she was the main teacher of a gentleman in Berkeley, Edward Spencer, who I studied with for probably 3 or 4 years, and I still meet with him, and we're both doing more esoteric energy work now. He's in his 70s, and just an amazing healer in his practices. So, rocking the body, using your feet. So it's like a dance between the person's body who's being held by the earth and the feet of the person who is administrating or it's always partnership. Healing modalities, to me, it's always a partnership between the practitioner and the client, or however you want to talk about it. But the practitioner is using their foot to rock the body, to apply pressure. So it's much easier on the body of the practitioner. And it also, if you think about the kind of metaphor is that holism creates holism. If I'm using my whole body when I'm working with my partner, then their whole body is being affected. So, and that's one of the reasons why, as a practitioner, it's important to be very healthy and to be very much in alignment as myself before I go and start working with someone else. But it's rocking meridians, encouraging the flow of the downward flow of the yang meridians, the upward flow of the yin meridians, which is the natural harmony of the body. Same as in Qigong, we're bringing the energy from the heavens through the yang meridians and the energy from the earth through the yin meridians. So I feel like Ashiatsu or Barefoot Shiatsu is a modality that assists with deepening the Qigong practices. That's how I use it anyway.
Okay, so is it in some way tied to the foot reflexology thing?
I mean, if I'm stepping on someone's feet, I'm stimulating all the reflexology points of the feet. If I'm stepping on the hands, I'm stimulating all the reflexology points of the hands. If I'm rubbing the ears, I'm stimulating all the reflexology points of the ears. It's not so specific in that way, but it's certainly working with those places. I mean, because this is a system of holism, and reflexology is looking at how an individual point is affecting the whole body. So it's almost like kind of the reverse. So if I'm working with all those points, if I'm stimulating all those points, then I'm stimulating the whole body. So it's just another pathway for that.
Thank you for touching on that. And I guess going up the page here, that was just the easiest thing to look at because it had like the short, small paragraph, but some of these longer paragraph things to talk about here: sound healing and sound journeys. Quickly glanced over them here, um, talking about what it entails, and I don't know if I've ever seen this phrase before: Shen points, spirit or heart points in patterns of sacred geometry. I think this is the first time, interestingly, I've ever heard that word Shen points, that phrase.
Yeah, Shen means spirit.
Yes.
So the Shen points are thousands of years old. These early points that were used to cultivate the heart, to support the heart. So kind of the main supporting, um, how do I describe this? I feel like supporting the heart, supporting the spirit. If we support the spirit, then our force of life is strong. Our love of life strengthens. And if we love life and love ourselves, then there's a way in which everything else wants to come into alignment and into harmony with that. So it's very simple. It's going into what's the essence? What's the essential nature? What is, how do we cultivate our spirit? How do we cultivate our essence? And by doing that, the rest of life starts to come into alignment. It can't help it. It's like the ripple effects go out into, if I love myself, I want to eat the best food. I want to feel the best that I can. I want to surround myself with people I love. I want to make sure I get enough sleep because I want to have the energy for these beautiful, precious days of my life so that, so everything else starts to come into alignment when we support the heart.
Oh yes, definitely go with the heart more than anything else. George Kavassilis from Australia is one of the big proponents of going with the heart a lot, and I can't help but pick on him though often about his whole mentality of forgetting about all the chakras, just go with the heart, forget about the third eye, just go with the heart, and it's more power to him if he can do that without getting bored. But I think he's kind of missing out on all the fun doing all the artistic things that he can do in life, getting all
there's
the other
two,
things
there's
involved.
two ways. It's like there's different ways. We all have our own way with things, and some people are seeking what is the simplest, most essential. Some people have minds that need to understand things in great complexity, and that's part of the beauty of our spectrum of humanness, is that there are those of us who are really um, looking at the depth and the essence. There are those of us who are looking at as many different ways as possible. It's and how we weave and blend these things together are all parts of our what make us unique in our expression. So beautiful that you want to know all the intricacies and details, and beautiful for him that he's saying, well, how do I just go to the heart, expand from the heart? The heart's the first brain. The heart's the first, in the dura mater, the tube, that becomes the heart and the brain. The heart starts everything in the embryo.
Yeah, well, that being said, one of the more controversial subjects that I've talked about on this show is the whole idea that when you're going on a broad scale, not just at the individual level of the heart, but what is the heart on the earth? Well, there's different chakra systems on the earth. And when you're talking about here on the surface about what makes the world go round from a standpoint of like human affairs and all, it's a big, pretty gut-wrenching truth. This is not me talking. This is Mattias De Stefano, Argentinian indigo child, talking. He says that the heart chakra is the economy, which is kind of sad because, on the earth we use fractional reserve banking, which loaning people money that doesn't exist and charging interest on it that makes debt and inflation unavoidable, which is basically a heart attack waiting to happen. It's not healthy,
And
and I
oh, that
realizing
heart.
that I make a big stink about how one of the biggest things I think we need is to get our ascension going. The biggest ball and chain, if you ask me, is the fact that we still use fractional reserve banking. We gotta have a currency reset and eventually join all the other systems out there that Alex Collier has been saying for years, don't use money. He says we're the only civilization that uses money, and well, that's pretty disturbing to hear. Why can't we join the club? Many would think after hearing that and get with the rest of the program that knows how to do it right. And why do we have to continue with fractional reserve banking as the heart system when it's basically a heart attack waiting to happen? Hey, it makes for a great radio conversation, even though it's hard to talk about. So, do you have anything to say about the heart attack waiting to happen, fractional reserve banking economy being the heart system on the earth?
Well, that's an interesting question. The way I perceive it is that all of these, if you look, it's like if you look at how people are taking care of their own spirits in so much of society, there's a lot of fragmentation, and the economics is reflected. It's like we're this microcosm of this macrocosm. How we relate to money, each personally, individually, it's like we each relate to money in our own individual ways. And there are these systems that money is operating in, but it's so complex because each of us is operating in our own way within those systems. That's self-explanatory. It's obvious when you look at the world and you look at how, some people have lots of money, some people don't have any money. What our belief systems are around money, how much does that affect? I mean, taking this idea of that the heart of our being is the economy. I don't know. I don't perceive that myself. I'm just saying, but I'm trying to grok this. So if the heart is what is open for exchange, open for community, my heart is where I reach out to my community through. My heart is where I'm receiving love. My heart is where I'm giving love. So how is that reflected in economics and banking? I don't know. I'm stretching here. I don't.
If it's not your area of expertise, then I'm sorry I asked.
I don't really connect that. Yeah.
Fair enough. So let's change the subject here. On offering sound journeys, it says here these meditative journeys using singing bowls, rain sticks, and other supportive instruments, and also humming and guided group toning provided the space and sound environment. Now, singing bowls, Tibetan singing bowls, I listen to them often to help me sleep, and also just lying down and relaxing. They're one of the things I seem to enjoy listening to a lot. But the thing here, rain sticks, well, a lot of people are going to wonder, can these not just bring rain if they can prevent rain? It may come in handy tomorrow for all those poor trick-or-treaters in the area who are wishing that it's not going to be thunderstorms in the area, because that's going to make for some very unpleasant trick-or-treating. I trick-or-treated in the rain a few times as a kid. I've always loved the rain, so it never really bothered me, but there's a lot of people that would say that would put a big damper, no pun intended, on Halloween, and one would have to wonder if rain sticks, if they are what you think they are, can they be used well to bring rain, and also do the exact opposite if you somehow had the intention of using them for that if you needed to. So why don't you enlighten people on how rain sticks work, and can they do both things?
Well, that's a funny question. Well, I live in California where there's a drought and everything is burning up right now, where we have fires everywhere. So if we could bring rain with rain sticks, oh my God. I mean, I did a sound journey last night and I used rain sticks a lot. And we were all praying for rain. So if your trick-or-treaters would please send us the rain that they don't want, we would be most grateful. We have, I have friends with houses burning in Northern California, and it's just uncontained fires. It's really a totally different story. So, but how I use rain sticks in a sound journey, the way I find them useful is the two things. The sound of rain is very soothing to the psyche. So that's one level. But the sound of rain also breaks up energy. It breaks up stuck energy. It moves things. So I also use them in that way. So there's multiple levels. There's using them as an intention to break up stuck energy. There's using them as a way of soothing. There's using them as with an intention to bring rain. If I were trying to prevent rain, I don't think I'd be pulling out rain sticks.
I guess that does make sense. Okay. But anyhow, so it says here your body is supported in finding its natural frequency balance while creating space for insights. Now, when it comes to finding natural frequency, want to make the argument, well, you really can't have a set in stone natural frequency, especially considering that there's been a lot of videos I've seen recently in recent times, especially like the last week, but it's happened throughout the course of, especially since 2012, the Schumann resonance, big talk about the Schumann resonance rising and rising and rising. And if the natural Schumann resonance frequency of the Earth is going to keep rising, then one would have to say, well, you're kind of in a lot of trouble if you're trying to find your natural frequency because, well, you're going to keep finding it because it's going to have to keep changing because as above, so below on the Earth, in our bodies, if you get my drift, is our frequency going to keep rising? And how do you accommodate for that? How do you keep finding your natural frequency without going crazy trying to wonder how much it's raised as our frequency keeps rising? You find that funny, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Well, because, I mean, yes, but every moment we are in some kind of harmonic alignment in every moment. Yes, constancy of change is the only thing we can rely on. The only given in life is that everything is going to keep changing. So to find our frequency, to find my frequency that I'm vibrating at in this moment, I'm being present in this moment. Now, 5 minutes from now, it may change. You know, there could be an earthquake 5 minutes from now, and something would really shift. You know, and I might be vibrating in a frequency that's closer to fear at that moment, and yet underneath there is a coherence. And I think when I think of finding our frequency, it's finding our coherence in our alignment with the natural world and ourselves. That's what I would say about that. It's more about coherence.
Fair enough. Says here you're a musician on the energy medicine thing. A musician, a mime, and an or music teacher for children. Well, first of all, let's take this one by one here. The thing about being a mime, interesting art. You're not supposed to talk, I presume. Are you that kind of a mime that is not supposed to talk and is supposed to act? Yeah. Okay. So what do you get?
Yeah.
What do you get out of that? What good does that do you having that occupation of all things?
Well, to me, silence is profound. I mean, I'm also a meditator, long time meditator. And when I can hold space and intention, and it's like being a magician, really, to be a mime, because you're communicating, you're creating something out of nothing. I have no props, I have nothing, and yet I'm showing people. It's like I'm creating things that aren't there and making them there. I'm opening this window here and now, and you see it. You've joined me in this other view of reality. So I think that's the beauty. That's the essence of it, is that there is this there's this magic that's always available to us. This, even people who can't talk can express themselves and communicate. But to me, it's more about the play and the creativity and the art of illusion. It's like to be a magician is to be working with the art of illusion. To be a mime is to be working with the art of illusion. I can't talk much longer because the project that my friends are working on outside is going to need me soon. So,
All right.
any other questions?
One more question, and then I'll let you get on anything you like, plug your stuff, and then we'll call it a day. But I've never seen this before, so I'm interested in asking you about it. You're an Orff music teacher for children. I've never seen that. Just like the Shen
Oh,
thing, I've never seen that before. What does
hmm
Orff mean?
so Karl Orff was a famous composer, and he made one of his famous pieces was Carmina Burana. It's kind of an opera. Anyway, he and Gunhild Keetman came up with this approach to teaching music to children that involves using dance and poetry, nursery rhymes. It's very much involved with the children creating their own music. So in addition to teaching children musical pieces, it's guiding their process of becoming composers. He said, let the children become the composers. Let the children be the composers. So that's the approach that I've taken for the last 25 years in teaching music to children.
All right, thank you. So you got to work on your project, fair enough. So right now, take the last couple minutes, get anything you like, plug your website, your contact info, and make a sales pitch out of anything you want to make a sales pitch out of, and we'll call it a night.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your sharing for the world. And I teach workshops and classes in understanding your bigger energy field called in-depth edge practice. So that's the name of my classes. I have one coming up on November 16th and 17th. I actually have people flying in from the East Coast to take it this time. So there's, although they're, yeah, hopefully they'll still come. Hopefully we'll still have a California here for them to come to with this crazy fire situation we have going on. But the sound journey work I do, I'm teaching a workshop in Cleveland, Ohio in December, the 15th of December, on using tuning forks and singing bowls and voice in healing and guiding a sound journey. Let's see, I think it's the 15th and 16th of December. It's a Friday night and a Saturday. I don't have my calendar in front of me. And I've got I do distance healing work, so I'm available for doing healing sessions over the phone with this sacred anatomy work, clearing astrals, entities, possessions, aligning you, working with chakras. All of these things I do over the phone as well as in person. And I just, wish for everyone to find their calling, what their spirit wants them to be doing. I feel like if we can all just find the way to support other people and ourselves in being in alignment with who we truly are, what we came here to do, what our life's purpose is, I feel like all the problems of the world will be solved so quickly because there's so much genius, collective genius. And each of us is here this called by the universe, called by this marriage of the heavens and the earth to be this unique manifestation of life that only you can be. So my biggest plug is for people to go and be who they feel called to be. Feel what's inspiring them and do that. So that's what I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
And have a
much.
wonderful
Yeah, this will be easy to upload because it's not only about an hour long, so it won't take long to convert to a format. I should be able to do it before midnight tonight, not midnight tomorrow, like I told you.
day.
So finish your project. Good luck with that. Thank you for coming on, and maybe I'll see you at a
Thank
conference or
you.
something. Take care now.
All right, you
Bye.
too.